so that we have a record of this for among other people. Flory, who is keeping note, of course. So,
Can I just add, I just spoke with Senator Edwards' office.
yeah,
She's delayed, she's in a budget hearing at the State House. She's now looking, she couldn't make it in person. But she will be on Zoom sometime between 5:45 and 6 o'clock.
okay, fine,
Okay,
right.
so we can just.
And I assume some, yeah, keep an eye on it. We'll-
Right,
we'll-
exactly.
And I just got an email that Councilor Mayhew will be unable to join us this evening, as it turns out.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
back of thousands.
Okay. So we'll just,
It's a best laid plan.
We'll talk about it.
The president's available.
Yeah.
Threw it right by me. I did not want this. Across the street.
All right, Officer Chapo, you want to tell us how, what you have been doing to keep us safe in the district?
Hi, Mark. Thank you. Hope everybody's well. I'll be brief. I know, can you hear me? Okay, I'll be brief. I know you guys have a busy lineup tonight, so it wasn't really too eventful in your area, so just start off with like two kind of altercations, assaults. One at 10 p.m. at Coogan's over on Milk Street, and the only reason
excuse me.
I'm gonna take care
Oh,
can you hear me?
hold on, Officer Chairman, we're having a little problem.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first one was Friday, May 17th at 10 p.m. Over at Coogan's in the Faneuil Hall area. And the only reason I bring some light to it is because the bouncer was involved over there. He described that two males, it was brought to his attention that they kept going in the bathroom, and he was suspicious that they were using drugs. So he had asked them to leave, and it did get physical between the bouncer and the victim. The victim stated that the bouncer struck him. The bouncer stated that he just kind of removed him by the shoulder, kind of forcefully removing him. So that was the first assault. And the other one was on Monday, May 13th at 1 p.m. This was an assault and battery over at the sugar factory located at 101 South Market Street. It appeared these two knew each other. The victim was able to provide the officers with the suspect's name. Didn't get too detailed about what the fight was over, but she kicked her with high heels on and took her phone and threw it at her face. She had a pretty good mark at her face. So, like I said, they did know each other. EMS was declined. Nobody too injured, thankfully. So those are kind of the only two assaults. We did have some larcenies over in the Faneuil Hall area. We're trying to crack down on that as best we can. We were able to meet with Faneuil Hall recently and just kind of hopefully, do some good police work over there, just to kind of limit the larcenies and such. I know it's going to get pretty busy in the summer months, so we have a pretty good partnership with them, and that'll be pretty positive to really go forward, and hopefully we can kind of catch some of these larcenies in the act. And the most serious incident was at 2:30 p.m. on Friday, May 10th. That was a person with a gun call over at 70 Rose Wharf, the Harbor Hotel. The victim called and stated that the suspect lifted his shirt up, making a motion as if he had a firearm. This incident began with the other suspect getting in a verbal altercation, I believe, with the hotel, one of the staff at the hotel. She left, came back with this other suspect. Like I said, he lifted up his shirt, not display. They didn't see the firearm, but it was a motion as if he had a firearm. So officers arrive on scene. This suspect goes down into the boats. onto a boat. Actually, officers arrived, they get the story from the Harbor Hotel. Eventually, they're able to, grab the suspect. Suspect was very cooperative, both suspects. He informed the officers that he did indeed have a license to carry the firearm. Officers were able to grab the firearm from him, or he handed it over. After we did a query of the license, sorry, so much going on around here. After they did do a query of the license, it did come back suspended, however. So he was informed that, obviously, he at least stated that he did not know. So we we seized the firearm in that case, take his license that he had on his person, and he'll be summoned to court for carrying a firearm without a license loaded with ammunition. But since he did have a license, and sometimes they give him the benefit of the doubt on the street, rather, it's actually don't believe it is arrestable if it's just suspended. So he did state that he had other firearms at home. Like I said, very cooperative. They were able to, he lived in Brockton, contact Brockton and get over to his house and confiscate the rest of the firearms. As for the threats, that will be further investigated by our detectives. They stated that they didn't see it, but he did make somewhat of a gesture to the waistband. So that's what we have detectives for. I'm sure they'll do some great work and figure out what had happened there. Other than that, like I said, we'll just be kind of up in our game. We have, I know the president's in town today, if he still is, so our entire force is being held over to work just in case there are any protests. It's always one protest after another. We're just trying to do the best we can with what we have. Other than that, like I said, everything else was pretty quiet in your area. If you have any questions for me, I think you need to hope to answer them or get back to me.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hi, Officer Trump, it's Jenny from Faneuil Hall. So thank you so much. We had a great meeting with the captain and Officer Trump and Officer Crossan, Sierra, and our new ownership, as well as our new security company. So great tie-in from the last meeting here, and thank you so much. The VP is always great to work with Faneuil Hall, and we're grateful for the renewed partnership there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, we're looking forward to it. Everything we talked about, we'll try to implement and do the best we can for you guys, so we really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great. Question, Joanne, yes.
Thank you. Officer Champa, thank you very much. This is Joanne Hayes Rhines. I live at Harbor Towers. And I just walked back from the north end, and I can see it from looking down onto the greenway. Nobody is stopping when the light turns red or yellow. So block the box is constant, which just causes gridlock. Is there any plan, the city of Boston, to enforce traffic laws?
So I know over the past year, the captain he's gotten some resources from MOP, which is our motorcycle unit, and they were able to come down, and wherever we had major traffic concerns, he was able to deploy them for, it's probably only one officer, and you know how big our district is. So wherever we had complaints, we would try to use that MOP motorcycle officer to try to grab some citations. The one challenge I known to have with this city is that nobody really, especially in that area, if you're talking Atlantic Ave and Congress. So these usually aren't the same people traveling the streets, right? So if I sit at a stop sign in a neighborhood or in my town, I'm probably going to get most of the residents. And if I'm hammering away, word's going to get out, okay, there's an officer there, he's tagging, he's giving citations, and everyone knows you're there, right? And the problem here is that there are so many commuters and people traveling to work. So when we do hammer out, say 50 citations in 2 weeks, we're just gonna get 50 new people doing the same thing. So, the best thing is marking the box, right? Is that marked down there? Do you know? Do they have
I'm
the big,
sorry?
do they have the big square and the do not block the
Well,
box
you can't-
square?
Like big X.
So you can't tell because the cars are on top of it. Seriously,
I-
it just was one street after the other in the north end.
So Jack, that might be something that you could, hi, how are you guys, everyone, by the way? So Jack, that might be something that you could ask.
Chief of Street.
Chief of Streets, there, if you could ask maybe Chief of Streets or BTD to go out and put some really bright, like almost offensively bright lines. They kind of do paint the box, right? We're trying to gain some voluntary compliance on that as best we can.
I was saying, like, we used to have mop like last year. Are we gonna have that resource?
So we just went through
That may sound like a logical answer, but all over the greenway, on the greenway is stamped, walk your bike, and they ride right over it. Signs don't do it. Maybe
know.
signs on poles that would say, don't block the box, but there's just no traffic enforcement in this city, motorcycles go down the pedestrian, the bike lane. Everything just goes backwards and
So
the
we
way
just-
they're not supposed to.
We just got a motorcycle officer motorcycle officers predominantly do traffic enforcement in the city. So we just got a motorcycle officer assigned to downtown. Yeah, she just finished the school about a week ago. He originally signed A1, but he just became motorcycle certified. So that is something that I could ask him to go out and just do enforcement during our peak hours, right? And you tell us what those hours really look like they are, right? I mean, I can go through and pull some data and whatnot, where all the complaints are, but you guys are the experts in your own neighborhood. You tell us when it's the worst. And
We
can-
will, we'll give you some thoughts on the areas in particular that we'd like you to focus on.
Thank you.
If you give us some street names, and again, I mean, working together with this, you guys are the experts in your own neighborhood. So you tell us the actual intersections that are the biggest problems and the times that are the biggest problems. And I will assign this officer to go down there on his motorcycle and just hammer people for whatever it is, an hour or two, whatever these blocks are, and try to make a difference. Frank's right, though, the amount of transient, our city grows, like doubles in population during the workday.
Right. Yeah, I would say it's from Atlantic Avenue and Congress up to Hanover Street. That whole area, and I know the Congress area is where they dump into the tunnel, and that's just really a nightmare. But you go the whole way, and it just,
We'll pick a couple of, I don't want to just give him, I want to be very specific with the officer when I tell him what to do. That way he can't misinterpret what we're looking for. So we'll give him very specific, if it's Pearl at Congress, if it's Atlantic and Purchase, if it's, Surface and High, whatever these specific intersections we want to use and the times, and I can assign him to that. And then, we'll try it for 2 weeks to see if it makes a difference, or try it for a month, right? We'll see if it makes a difference.
thank you very much. I appreciate
We'll do
that.
just that. Yeah, there's another question.
Well, may I just add, crossing just now?
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I don't think that any of us here put the onus for this issue entirely on the shoulders of District A1. It is a systemic problem that needs to be addressed by BTD, by the mayor, and by the city planners. So I just want to make clear that we appreciate your efforts to do what you can. We certainly don't expect you to solve the problem, but I just want to say, we really appreciate your efforts to make things better, so.
But I think it's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Because we provide you with some thoughts as to the places that we see as being particularly problematic.
I have a question. In Manhattan, they have cameras in specific locations, where if you block the box, the camera's gonna get your license plate. Is there any thought to doing something like that here in Boston in key locations, like Congress Street and Atlantic Avenue?
So this is something that I'll speak on very briefly, but this might be something more for Councilor Coletta to speak on, or potentially even Senator Edwards when she comes on, right? There's an issue, so the city has a surveillance ordinance that's geared towards all things basically electronic that the police department does, and as well as a few other divisions as well, right? Transportation, public parks and rec, anything that has kind of surveillance type materials or surveillance type technology. That is something that I've spoken to Councilor Flynn quite a bit about, is that, hey, we would like red light cameras. And I know there's some potentially pending legislation to discuss it. If that's something we want to bring to our city. We had license plate readers for a long time. There was an issue with them. We have all the equipment. It's in a box, it's in a closet somewhere, but it's been stripped off the vehicles because the city council voted at one point in time. I'm not sure, 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, when I first got on, I remember 12 years ago, we're talking.
To get rid of it, right? So we had them, we lost them. The department would like them, right? It's a tool that law enforcement can use to make their job better. We lost that in a political fight. So I would say we'd be happy to use them. We'd be happy to employ them. That cuts both ways. We were also going, and I had to remind the North End folks this when they asked for them. You're going to whack residents too, because if a resident's not paying attention, they're going to get hit too, right? It's the camera doesn't care who you are or where you live. It's just going to see, you know, violation plate, send the ticket, move on. So we have to be prepared for that to cut both ways. Full disclosure, right? I want to say that, but that's something I would please welcome, and maybe Jack can help me out, maybe messaging that to the counselor or even to Senator Edwards, and I'm happy to help speak with her as well if that helps. Legislation like this, but that might need to be a political push, similar to the department policy.
Joe Christo.
Officer Ciampa, it's unfortunate that you're not actually at Rose Wharf right now, because if you were, when you left the meeting and drove out of East India Row, you'd see that the box is blocked at the intersection of India Street and Surface Road.
Today's a tough day because the president's in town and he has traffic.
No. This is especially on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. This is almost an event all the time. And as a matter of fact, just talk to other members of your force about accessing Surface Road during an emergency. Oftentimes they just sitting on Surface Road with their blues and sirens on. It's a very important, as a matter of fact, there's one route there right now. So I don't know if it's an EMS or fire or a police car. It's state police right now. So this is a constant problem, and it's not just on the Atlantic Ave side, it's the Surface Road, it's both sides. So I just bring that to your attention.
So Robert, thank you. So one of the things that I've noticed, that unfortunately, I don't know if the light cycles aren't timed appropriately, then we're going to be pulling into the next block intersection, which is,
They are never timed correctly.
they're not, you said they're not timed appropriately?
Never.
Yeah. So that's one of the big issues, is they're not in sequence. So that's a huge issue. The other one is, I'm not going to give up my car and take a bicycle to work or walk to work or use the T. It's not feasible for me. At the same token, I understand that I'm contributing to the problem when I drive to work, that our streets are not designed for the number of cars that we have, right? These are old cow paths that we put asphalt on, right? Our city's not laid out properly. And I think it's too far to actually fix anything to put like a decent grid system that works, right? Like New York, for example, they have a much more effective system. I don't have a great answer for that. And I thank you for recognizing that we're not the sole responsibility for solving it. I think city planners and public works and BTD have equal parts to this solution as well.
Right. I wonder if an electronic signboard before some of these intersections for a week or so, and then move it to another intersection. I wonder if that would do the job of bringing the problem to the attention of even the transit drivers.
We have a signboard. We can put one up. I can put whatever message you think is appropriate, or we can work together, or maybe Chief Franklin Hodges can talk with us and work with us and figure out what the message needs to say. It can only be about 6 words, I think, on the screen.
Then the message is don't block the box, I think. Joe, you have a question?
Yeah, I actually have
Just a real quick, oh, sorry. Were you talking to me, Mark?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a real quick, two success stories here, where one of the worst intersections in the city was, Commercial Street into Causeway, where it meets North Washington over near TD Garden, right? And I know this is a huge investment, it's a budget issue, but the two cops that have been out there during rush hour now, transformative to that neighborhood, right? So like completely transformed the situation there. Now I know you can't do that at every intersection, but that has been like an example of a success story. And the other one quickly is just when I did live in New York, honking reduced drastically. And I know this is not a BPD issue, it's a city planning issue. Honking reduced drastically as soon as those signs went up that said, $500 fine for, honking your horn. And there was stories talking about how drastically it was reduced. So just wanted to cite those two success stories as everyone's trying to figure out how to address this.
So Joe, as a resident of Boston and also working here, I fully, and as a beneficiary of, someone who would have traffic cop pulling us through, I say this every time, we don't have enough cops to put in every intersection. The reason the North Washington Bridge got folks at City Square and Keeney Square was twofold. One, we knocked out a crosswalk in a sidewalk for the school. So there was a youth safety issue. Secondly, it's a subsidized project by the state. I know it's a city bridge, but the state's eating a lot of the cost. So the state ends up backfilling the cost of the officers. It's tough to justify just because there's traffic, the city to expend X number of dollars every year. I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more.
Sheila, did you have a?
It's just tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a comment. At our last police advisory meeting, the captain had requested that we all help out to support legislation that is going through, I guess, council now, and you all clarify for me, to get those bloody little scooters registered. They're on sidewalks, they're absolutely everywhere, and they are currently not registered. I know Councilman Flynn is supporting this and is involved, but perhaps you could elaborate just a bit.
So a couple months ago, I had the opportunity to talk to City Council President Louis Jean. We talked about that. Her chief of staff was there, took some copious notes, and I said, this is going to sound, on the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge priority, right? But I said, it is a significant quality of life issue. And if somebody gets hurt by one of these, it's going to obviously climb the priority scale, but I don't want it to get to that point. I get a lot of asked questions. Why don't we try to stop them? And why don't we cite them or pull them over or tow their vehicles? We have a pretty strict no pursuit policy for simple violations of the auto laws, right? So driving a scooter the wrong way or the one way or no helmet is not something I can pursue for. If they do a shooting on the scooter, no problem. We'll chase them. They stab somebody, we'll chase them. But just simply delivering Uber the wrong way on a one-way or delivering food, that's not something we're going to pursue them for. We have a very, very low percentage, I'll say, compliance rate with people pulling over when we put our lights on for. Most people wouldn't believe the number of scooter drivers who run from us. Like 90% of them. They pick up on a sidewalk, they cut through a park, they cut on a sidewalk, they go between cars, and I'm driving a big SUV and I can't catch them in downtown. They disappear into the woodwork. If I kill someone or hurt someone trying to chase them, I am personally liable. So that's why we don't chase scooters. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, I guess, would be a kind of good way of doing it. So what do? Our argument was we need to go after the Uber Eats and the Getters and the other food delivery. I'm not sure all of them, right? The hubs or whatever they do in the food delivery companies, and say, no, in order for someone to get on your platform, they have to submit proof of insurance, proof of registration, proof of driver's license, things of that nature. Most of these folks riding these scooters don't have driver's licenses or they're suspended licenses. They're driving. One drove by me the other day. I had a punched ignition. It means that's a stolen scooter. Like I know it is. So, right. So, it needs to be a legislative fix. And you need to go after the companies that are hiring these individuals, these drivers, or these riders. Because it's too much for law enforcement to do. We have to go at it from, we'll use the root cause, right? We have to go at it from root cause. If that means we have to crack down on the Uber drivers, or the Uber Eats delivery guys on the scooters, that's what we'll do. Councilor Flynn was pushing forward something for the Uber drivers. You order on your phone, they drive you to Fenway or whatever, so you don't have to park your car or whatnot. that needs to be expanded into the food delivery.
Okay,
Yeah,
Great.
I wish I had a better answer. I'm sorry, I don't. We're working on it.
Yeah.
But that needs to be a legislative push, and maybe we would push that to Senator Edwards when she joins us.
Good.
So.
thank you. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Clarification.
We're gonna take a moment for, Matthew, do you want to just tell us all who our new members are?
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's Matthew Murphy here,
Thank you.
from Boston Harbor City Cruises and Vice President of the Wharf District Council. So we actually have a new associate member who many of you may already know, but is now a new official associate member. That is Jane Berman, who is just to our left. And she was kind enough to bring cookies. So if you're here on Zoom, you're missing out on some delicious cookies. It's worth showing up in person sometimes. Jane, did you want to say anything?
No, I've been following the meetings and I am very grateful for all the work you do to make our life better on the water. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And Mark and I met recently with Brian Coop and Rebecca Slaughter, I believe, from BPX. And BPX, formerly known as Boston Properties, is coming on board as a corporate member. We're very happy to have them join. And then I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, but Related Beal, which owns the historic grain exchange building across the street on Milk Street. Aisha Miller is their vice president of community affairs, and Related Beal is coming on board as a member as well. And I think one of the just for me to interject a moment, I think one of the things that was really crucial in getting Related Beal to come on board, and I would say this about BPX as well, is the work that we've been doing around climate resiliency and coastal protection. And I think those discussions were really eye-opening for those organizations, and we're grateful to have them come on board as members, to have their expertise and input as we continue to work on that issue and others as well. So welcome to all of our new members, and happy to have you. And yes, and I have one more announcement for later.
Great. Thank you, new members, for joining us. I see that Senator Edwards has joined us, and welcome, Senator, and thank you for being with us. And perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what's been keeping you busy lately.
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually currently in the middle of budget week, so I wanted to physically be there in front of all of you, but unfortunately, they could call a roll call at any point, and I got to go run to the Senate floor. So I did want to give you some updates. As I mentioned, we are in the middle of budget season right now, and our budget is robust, and our fiscal health is actually pretty good. I know that there have been some projections about low income, but we came in above benchmark, and we are making sure that our rainy day fund is thoroughly funded. And we are also looking at ways in which we can at least slow down some of the spending when it comes to some of the government agencies. That being said, we have tried our best to fund as much of our social programs, things that we have put forward, such as free school lunch for our kids around the entire state. Free school meals, I should say. So that includes some breakfast in some schools as well as lunch. We're also, the Senate is pushing forward a universal access to community college, which is also a huge, exciting proposal that we have. And just to give you a highlight of the last time we have pushed forward and led with nursing programs, for example, being fully funded and free, the nursing programs around the community colleges have gone up 500%, the amount of enrollees in the programs. And we do have a shortage of nurses, so investing and assuring that it's at least free to become a nurse has been proven to work. We are working heavily on housing and assuring that people can afford to stay in the state. It's been one of the biggest challenges we have. I am the chair of housing. And so we have a mega omnibus bill of $1 billion in dealing with the housing bond issue. There's about 25 pieces of legislation attached to that. That includes everything from a transfer fee to eviction ceiling to allowing ADUs as of right on a single family home, to lowering the threshold for affordable housing when the localities in turn vote for it. So we're dealing with a lot of interesting components when it comes to the housing bond bill. This week, I believe the House is going to take up the HERO Act. The HERO Act is dealing with veteran services and military members. I'm very excited to support that. I myself, as many of you know, I joined and commissioned into the United States Army. I'm a JAG officer and I work in the reserves with Captain Crossan here, or my captain. He's been an incredible supporter, but also, so the HERO Act is now especially exciting for me to see how that goes. And we're doing a lot of things, just right sizing the benefits and right sizing, just honestly being consistent with how we define veterans, how they can access certain state resources, making sure that when it comes to even small things, I'm a JAG officer. It takes 2 years, for example, if there's sexual assault, as you know, in the military, and if a sexual assault happens, we have 2 years to prosecute it. Investigate and prosecute it. And that happens at the beginning of the when the crime happens is when the time starts. And that's a problem for us. So one of the amendments we're trying to do is basically say the clock should start ticking when the person comes forward. Because it takes a while if you've been through that kind of trauma. So that's what we're doing. We have a whole military code in the Massachusetts state law, which a lot of people didn't realize. Now, on to our waterfront and our natural resources. Just want to let you know we have an environmental bond bill coming up. It's a massive mega bill, again, to deal with environment and climate. We'll be looking at all sorts of things, including finally coming up with a way to decouple our future from oil, making sure that we are coming up with sustainable ways to build. And also assuring that for the first time, we have a fully funded, robust water transportation system. In my first year, I actually was part of helping to coordinate about $30 million in bond money to assure that we would build what we felt was just as important, which is a robust water transportation commuting system from Gloucester all the way to the Cape. And we wanted new ports, we wanted new boats, we wanted to make sure that we were fully investing in it. And we feel very much that it's just as important as East-West Rail and having that kind of infrastructure built up. It's also dollar for dollar the most efficient and the most fiscally responsible investment in transportation, what it takes to build. Right now, to fund our entire ferry system, the whole line, the Winthrop line, the East Boston North End line, and Lynn, is about $5 million. Yeah, it's extremely cost efficient. And so we're pushing forward in the Senate $7.5 million to hopefully increase frequency and to help get us a boat and all so on and so forth. But I'm telling you, investing in the waterfront makes the most sense. Or water transportation. And then I'm happy to open up for questions. I just reminding you, as I've had to remind some of my other North End residents, I do not have any control over outdoor dining. I do not, repeat, have any control over outdoor dining, nor do I talk to the mayor about outdoor dining, nor did I decide what restaurants could be in outdoor dining. I have done nothing. I am not a city councilor anymore. I want to repeat this again. Please stop emailing, asking, screaming at me about the lawsuit or outdoor dining. I really mean, I have done, I promise you, I have not. But I know it's a big issue. Development's a big issue too, and I'm happy to talk about any of the projects, though I'm not as in the weeds as I used to be as a city councilor. But I'll stop there because I know I've been rattling off a lot. I'm happy to answer and ebb and flow if you have time.
Great. How about some questions for Senator Edwards? Yes, Joanne.
Hi, Senator Edwards.
Hi.
you. Thank you for coming this evening. Do you know if the East Boston Ferry from Long Wharf will be on this summer again? And is there a possibility or is there a need for it to be year round?
Yes, and yes. So the East Boston to the Long Wharf and the Seaport, that is up and running, and it will continue to keep running. We are hoping that during the tunnel closure, we'll get the same mitigation as we did last time, that it was essentially free. And there's several long-term conversations that are happening. First, I want to give credit to MassDOT. They have hired a ferry chief or chief of boats, if you will. For the first time, they have someone dedicated in the MBTA to just waterfront transportation. And so I want to say his last name is Derry, and I have spoken, and we've been on joint calls, and part of the
Perry, is it David Perry? I believe.
Perry, thank you so much. Perry, have spoken about making several infrastructure changes. One, that we have an inner harbor ferry that's year round. That's going around just within the components. Two, that we, at least for Winthrop, have weekend service. Three, that we increase service for all of the ferries. If you truly want them to be a commuter service, you need to almost have them running at least within the hours that the T is running. We want time service. We want robust service. So all of these things are on the table, and all of these conversations are happening. And so hopefully with the increased funding, they will happen.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator Edwards, Matthew Murphy here from Boston Harbor City Cruises. And thank you for all your advocacy about water transportation, really much appreciated. And tied to that, I know that we presented to your staff Council's coastal protection and resilience plan for this entire neighborhood. And I do know that sort of the other side of the coin with water transportation is, as you mentioned, upgrading, refurbishing docks, not just in Boston Harbor, but up and down the coast. And I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit. And I think one thing that we have discovered in many of our discussions is the need for local, state, and federal funds are going to be necessary. And to coordinate all of that is a gigantic challenge, but we have been doing our best in our corner of the waterfront here in the Wharf District to address that. So can you speak to that need that sort of goes along with water transportation?
Right. It's the infrastructure need that's not as sexy as, let's say, the boat or the new routes and things like that. It's about making sure that the docks and the access to the boats are ADA accessible, which a lot of them aren't. And so if you're truly dedicated to public transportation, you can't say just for those who are able-bodied. Legally, you can't say it, but also you can't really treat that as a serious system. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do, is to make sure all of the docks are ADA accessible, that people in wheelchairs, obviously, and walkers, and any other mobility, all forms of mobility can have access to the boat through the dock. That's one thing. Two, and so that also requires us to look at different sea level rises and a lot more ways in which we can and cannot build that infrastructure. Right. This is one of the times where nature is dictating where we can have access a little bit more than, say, with the T or other options. But the point of the bonding is to really be able to have that reliable, consistent, accessible transportation on the water. Along with looking at the dock, it's also the navigation system, which we talked a lot with Boston Harbor about, like, what would the route be? Are we talking about literally a boat going to each from Gloucester to Salem to Lynn all the way down? Are we talking about several boats kind of going straight into Boston and straight out? There's a lot of great conversation. And then, of course, there's open ocean that Lynn is going on, which is different from the inner harbor that we have. And so all of these different kinds of conversations, again, down to even just having enough captains, enough people to hire. Like we had to go to the Maritime Academy at one point to ask for the graduates from the Maritime Academy to work the summer because we couldn't get enough captains. So it is an infrastructure issue, and it's it's finally time that the state is talking about it as an infrastructure issue versus something luxurious for just any old person or rich people to have.
Thank you.
Great, that sounds excellent. Other questions? Well, we appreciate all the effort that you're putting into in particular, the budget, ongoing budget issues. We understand that that there's some possibility that some money will be provided in this upcoming budget for our continued effort at climate resilience in the
With the earmarks.
with the earmarks, and
Yep.
we hope you're able to keep that in. We know that Representative Mikowitz has been keen on that. And we are continuing to, I know you can't stick with us for the rest of the meeting, but we're going to be reporting on the conversations that we have ongoing with the Army Corps of Engineers and with the city relative to the work that they're doing. So this is a very active effort on our parts, and we have been as open about sharing the resources that we have with our neighbors. So we thank you for your support on that and everything else that you do for us.
I
Thank-
do have a question. It may not be in your area, but with respect to tourism, I mean, our area is, especially in the spring and the summer, is a huge tourist destination. And I think we do a great job accommodating them, but there's so much more that we could do in this area that focuses on the folks that visit. And I'm just wondering if the state has any allocations that would allow for a small little neighborhood like ours to have access to using or proposing or being involved in creating something that supports the folks that come to visit us. I know, Quincy, Mark, you do a yeoman's job when they come in. You've got bathrooms in the basement and food in the marketplace, Faneuil Hall, and so forth. But there are, I mean, I think we all agree, there are other enhancements. Signage is one. but-
Wayfinding signage is a big one,
Right,
and restrooms
Yes.
is a big one also.
but I think we have so many more important things to deal with. I think this kind of gets lost, not with you, but just in general, in terms of government. I'm just wondering if there is any opportunity for us.
So on the topic of restrooms, I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the earmarks that I have supported, and I'm happy to think about in the future supporting for your neighborhood, but for the Boston Common, I've supported an earmark to help pay for a public restroom on the Common. That's during the summer. And they initially got the money on their own, the Friends of the Public Garden. And let me tell you, it's just three rooms. It's an accessible, a male and a female. And it's cleaned. They pay for the cleaners 3 times a day. And it was used in one summer by 100,000 people. 100,000 people use the public or use the bathroom. It was no cost, but they were funding it. And so the $50,000 that I got in earmark either goes to pay for the workers or pays for some sort of down payment and helps them to continue the bathroom. So I believe that, that is a huge part of tourism infrastructure is a public accessible bathroom. And it helps a great deal that it's cleaned by people who are standing right there.
Right.
And that because they get used for other purposes, otherwise.
We understand, yep. And also, but it was also a matter of accessibility. There were people with dietary and physical needs that did not allow them to be in a public space without access to a bathroom. And so for the first time, they were coming to the park and enjoying themselves and able to have a dignified existence in the park. And so it was a big deal. And those are some constituents that I heard from Beacon Hill. Now, I'm happy what would help me in supporting an earmark to get a bathroom in your neighborhood is a location. Like, I don't know where you guys want it, how much it would cost, what would it do, but also partnership. Don't forget about partners such as Meet Boston. Meet Boston is part of a tourism bid. Like, you know, the Greenway was a bid, a real estate bid that all the bordering, you know. So Meet Boston also offers grants and supports funding for tourists and tourism because the hotels are on a bid and they actually fund. I helped to pass that legislation as a city councilor, and within its first year, it raised $26 million. So it's not nothing, and it's supposed to literally promote Boston. So I would encourage that. Of course, I don't know if Chris Cook or anybody from the Greenway is also a bid that we would also want to partner with. You know, it's part of your neighborhood as well. I wouldn't say it's a neighborhood unto itself, but there are certain entities that are raising money through, I think, creative means because of the state action that allowed them to happen, that I'm happy to support you in helping to tap into those funds. And I've done that before for a Latino festival. When we had dignitaries coming from other states, I went to Meet Boston, and they have been very supportive. So
That's great to know that you are a supporter of that as well. We'll talk with Chris and chicken. You want to say anything to that?
Well, I feel
I saw you.
Senator, it's really wonderful to see you. So the only thing I would say is absolutely look forward to talking to Wharf District Council more about that issue, because it's a real issue for everyone to feel welcome in the neighborhood. But I would be remiss because Stephen Johnson, the poor guy, he's in an all hotel meeting right across in the Wharf room right now, which is the TDMV. They're all meeting.
Yeah, that's the bid. Yeah, the tourism
would not exist without your extraordinary leadership. And I know he would say that if he was in this room. So, you know, we've been the recipient, countless festivals have been the recipient. It's driving real economic dollars into the Commonwealth. And so very, very grateful for your leadership on that. It's been an unmitigated success for Meet Boston. Thank you for your leadership on that.
And I would echo that for the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park. So thank you very much. You know, it's very little, but we don't need a lot of money, but Meet Boston has been there to support us. So thank you, because of you.
Clearly, good job. You know, a lot of happy constituents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Right. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
I think that's a reasonable segue to Chris Cook, who's going to tell us, I guess, what's going on the Greenway.
Yeah, so I might be able to share my screen, Mark. I don't know if
You should be able to.
yeah. I don't know if it was good. That work?
Yeah, kind of.
So it's not ideal. If that's too much, if that's too small, I could also open up a window on here. And look, it's up to you.
You should. It's not. Well, you better open.
Oh, there you go.
Better?
Yeah.
That better, folks?
Yes.
All right, great. So, sorry. Really loud green on the screen. So it's a much nicer green on my cell phone. I apologize for that. So very happy to be here. I wanted to go over a couple of things tonight. What's coming up with public art programs, food trucks, there's a few park updates. Going to talk for a few minutes. Happy to answer any questions. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the amazing public art lineup that we have this year. It's incredible. So the first two pieces, on this piece, Year of the Dragon, this is already installed in Chin Park in Chinatown. If you haven't seen it, this is it's a playable park element. It's actually a dragon that kids can interact and play with. It's super fun. It's in the park. Also, we have our Jerome James piece. which is an incredible element where he's actually explored what tattoos would look like on balloons, and then he's created photography around those balloons, and he stalled it in a piece that is backlit in Chin Park. It has a lot of resonance with his family. It's really exciting. He's an emerging artist. The next artist, which is the middle artist featured on this slide, is Jeffrey Gibson. Jeffrey Gibson just represented the United States of America at the Venice Biennale. Jeffrey Gibson is the first Indigenous artist that we will be featuring on the Dewey Square mural. His work will be installed on the mural in July. It's a wonderful follow-up as we're honoring Rob Gibbs' incredible Breathe Life mural that's up right now. And what's fascinating about it is while his mural's going up, he's also going to be having a show at Mass MoCA. So on both ends of Massachusetts, this artist will be featured. It's super exciting. He's actually the cover of Art in America magazine this month. So it just goes to show that Dr. Audrey Lopez, our curator, is really ahead of the curve on picking extraordinary public art. The other two artists, Lonnie Asuncion, that'll be in the Wharf, and this will tie in very well, I think, with advocacy for the resilience plan of the Wharf District. This piece features a water clock and other elements that is meant to connect people to the physical changes that are going to occur due to climate change. So it is a piece that is focused on sea level rise and coastal resilience. And yeah, right in front of the light blades. Yeah. So it's going to be a nice piece. It won't interfere with any of the feasts or the festivals. It's a small piece, but it'll be interactive, so people will be able to engage with it. So I think if we tie it into the advocacy for the plan, I think that would work nicely. Our business improvement district is very interested in doing that as well. I wanted to remind folks, I'll get into the last piece. I didn't skip her. I'm going to give her her own slide. The Maria Multaney is still on display, this unbelievable mural that sort of connects. It's sort of a mental hitching post between Jenny and Joanne. So it's between Christopher Columbus and Faneuil Hall Marketplace. It's going to get touched up around mid-June, and then it'll be on display through October. We found it to be like a really nice compliment to the carousel, kids having fun in that area. So the last artist that I didn't get to is Larissa Rogers, who's an emerging artist. She's out of Virginia, but she's been based in Massachusetts for the past couple of years. This is an extraordinary project. Some of you may remember a professor uncovered the history of Zipporah Potter Atkins on the Greenway. Zipporah Potter Atkins was a Black woman who owned her own home, owned her own property right in the North End, where the Greenway is now situated on the Mill Pond, 100 years before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Governor Patrick unveiled a monument there to mark the location. And this summer, this artist is going to be recreating the framework of her house on the site. Just so exciting to embed this history as we're heading into all of our anniversaries of our colonial and the revolutionary history that we'll be celebrating, and just a way to mark that the light of, from Paul Revere on Old North can shine on a whole bunch of people, and it doesn't diminish the light whatsoever. So we're super excited about this, but part of the coolest part about this project is that we actually have an open call for soil right now. So people can actually donate soil to the Greenway. Not that we need it, but we need it for this project. But you can donate soil to the Greenway, and we're going to make adobe bricks out of the donated soil. And that donated soil, adobe bricks, will form the foundation of this house. So you're literally going to embed a place that is special to you in celebrating a place that should be special to Boston. So it's just like a really magnificent, thoughtful piece of art that we're super excited about. And while you're having all those big, yeah, please go ahead.
I'm just curious, how do we donate soil? My last roommate actually left a bunch of gardening stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I'll send a link. Yeah, I'll send a link. But we literally have a box right outside of 185 Nealon Street.
Great, that's not that far.
We're at a Mass Dot building. They're super excited that we have a box for people to donate soil. You can imagine.
Hard to get rid of.
But that's what happens when you have arts people in your building, yeah.
Hey, Chris, question on the artwork you just highlighted. Is there going to be an information sign with that incredible story on it?
Yeah, it's not only that, Norm, I think that's very important, that we will have didactic signage that tells the story on site, but we are gonna try to build a website as well, so even after the art is deinstalled eventually, we'll be able to, you know, continue telling that story more actively. It is steps from the Freedom Trail, so it's an exciting part of our history.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the fitness program, this is a whiplash for switching gears, so sorry about that, but like, we have an amazing fitness program sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield. We're really excited about it. And we're extending it into the North End more this year because we heard from residents that they wanted to see it down there. So, you know, check that out. It's all on our website. The Greenway Carousel is open. Please go enjoy that. One thing I wanted to call out for you all is the Boston Public Market wanted to be a little bit closer to home for its public market that it ran on the Greenway down in Dewey Square. So they're actually moving that into the Wharf. And so if anyone's interested in CSA shares or anything like that, and you don't want to walk the other 20 feet to the public market, you can just go to this market. I think it'll be a little bit busier for them, and I think it'll be a nice complement to the other events that we have. I also want to remind people, this is one of the best events that we have in the entire park. NEMPAC's partnership that we have, Jazz in the Park. We're super excited that that's continuing. We have 2 drinkeries this year, so you may remember we had a City Winery location at Dewey Square. City Winery wasn't able to continue, so Night Shift is moving in there this summer. Of course, Trillium is already open. I saw people enjoying the 80-degree day. Very busy food truck season. Over 75% of our vendors are women or minority-owned businesses. We're very proud of that. So, you know, please get out there and support them. We're super excited to have so many new trucks joining us this year. It's a real nice cycle when you get new in there and people get a taste of more variety. And again, we will have more locations in the park closer to this end. And then last, before I answer any questions for everyone, I want to remind everyone that we do have 2 extraordinary parties coming up. Gala on the Greenway, we're celebrating Aaron Michaelwitz. That's on June 6th, right at the Rings Fountain. And then, of course, the amazing Jenny Harding is doing an incredible job co-chairing Glow in the Park, which is June 7th. I'd say the more fun of the 2 events. I don't know. You know, what would you say, Jenny?
I'd say it's a little more of a party.
It's a little more of a party, you know, but the gala's amazing too. So
Gala's amazing.
whichever one you want to attend, we would be thrilled. You know, there are limited tickets available for the gala still. There's still a lot of tickets available for Glow. Glow is pretty incredible. It's a great event, and you know, usually both events end with people splashing around in the fountain a little bit. And the last thing I wanted to do, yes.
How much is the Glow tickets?
125.
125.
Yeah, 125, yeah. And again, it is a lot of gala sponsors buy a few tickets for Glow so that some of the young professionals in their offices can join. It's a really amazing event.
Do you card the older folks to make sure that we can slip in? How does that?
No, I expect you to be there.
My wife doesn't go to gala, my wife goes to Glow. So she really enjoys it.
Are there tables this year at the gala?
Yeah, there'll be a few, but not many. So we'll have them on the outs, you know, the edges of the tent. So if somebody needs one, they'll have it. Yeah.
The Wharf District has its own table.
Yeah. Chinatown has its own table too.
Well, I mean, frankly, for some folks,
It's a long night. Yeah. So, yeah, no, there'll be places to sit, and I think we can also slide in a few benches too. Yeah. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is that, a big fan favorite in September, so this is a ways off, but the Boston Local Food Festival wanted me to remind everyone at the Wharf District, they're coming back on September 15th, which is their usual Sunday. Their rain date is September 22nd, but I'll email that along as I get closer, but that's always a massive event, and it does involve, it's one of the very few road closures that we have for events on the Greenway, so. Yeah.
Do you have dancing this year?
We don't, no, we don't have the dance program this year. So we're gonna recalibrate that, and we're gonna lean into programming for the winter. Yeah.
Well, I would just like to add that as a board member of the Greenway Bid and the Conservancy, thank you, Chris, for your tireless efforts. I mean, the Greenway does such an incredible job, and, you know, it is run so professionally, and we are so lucky.
Mow the grass, empty the barrels, right, Joanne?
Yeah, you got it.
Well, it's very kind to you, but it's super exciting, and it feels really special to be part of the neighborhood. And the Greenway does feel part of these neighborhoods, and you know, and the Wharf is just amazing. You know, just on the tourism thing, really quickly, is all right, Mark? Yeah. Two initiatives just to be aware of, and again, so this is like Mutual Admiration Society, right? So, but like Jenny's leadership on the Greenway Business Improvement District that the senator mentioned. The Greenway Business Improvement District was very interested in our programming, but they were more interested in helping the environment for return to work and commercial real estate in downtown. They're very concerned about that. So I think you all see it, the tourists are all back, but folks, downtown workers are not back, you know? And so like, how can they start getting excited about, you know, coming back to these neighborhoods again too? So you will see some branding called Heartbeat of the Greenway, and that's our Greenway Business Improvement District, which typically only funds capital improvements and maintenance and operations. So they are funding some programs in public art. And it's really geared towards creating that vitality for the downtown worker, because that's a piece of the economic puzzle that is missing. And it's a law of diminishing returns for all of you, because it's a quality of life thing, because your hairdresser goes, you know, the nail salon goes, the restaurant goes, because they need those office workers to make it, right? They can't just make it on tourists alone. That's one initiative. The other initiative, through the leadership of Cheryl Cronin at the Boston Public Market secured a Mass Office of Travel and Tourism grant. And that's focused on, you know, making the Greenway and the public market an area that people who are within a day's drive of Boston would want to visit, right? So, you know, some of these other cities are actually starting to eat our lunch a little bit, like Providence and those, like the day trips, right? So how do we get people excited about coming back in? You know, the hotel occupancy is very, very high if you talk to any of those folks right there, but we are losing a little bit of that foot traffic from people who can actually just come here and vote with their feet. So you'll see a little bit of, billboards and other signage advertising the public market and the Greenway as a destination. And hopefully that lifts all boats.
We do need a water fire equivalent.
I agree.
I mean, that is just so magnificent. I mean,
you know, that you need that proxy thing, right? So Ferris wheel, water fire, but you need the thing. Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Who is the co-chair of Club with you?
Derek Grady. Yeah, he's from all those boards. I know, not for you.
Oh, what was it?
She was last year.
Oh, she was last year. Oh, gotcha.
That's what I'm like,
Yeah, Luz is the best.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
she is.
Great. Any questions for Chris? All right.
And I'm serious about following up on the restaurants.
Yeah.
We all have to figure that out together.
Yeah. It's an important thing for inclusivity too.
Yeah.
For reasons that I talked about in the past.
I have one. Is the sauna going to come back next year?
So we're in conversations. One of the conversations that we have is with the Boston Harbor Hotel, but honestly, a big barrier for them was the fire detail that was required to be on site the entire time of their operation. It was a lot of money that they ended up paying, so that did not enable them to be profitable. It also force them to charge prices that they didn't really want to charge in order to just try to break even. So if they don't get relief from that, it would be very hard for them to come back. And they were, they were fairly responsible. I will say, I think if they did come back, we'd want to improve the site even more. There's some more beautification that we could take. We weren't crazy about, one structural element, which is like the large dome that seemed out of place. The actual saunas themselves with the evergreens and everything looked very, very nice. Yeah.
Great. Anything else? Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Joanne, you have two things that you would like to share, is that right?
Yes, please.
How about we start with this one?
So the first one, no, the other one. Good guess.
All right.
So everyone knows who you are.
There's a mic. Who doesn't know? All right, so, this membership socials.
There you go, that's it, thank you. So good evening, everybody. My name is Joanne Hayes Rhines. I'm the president of Friends of Christopher Columbus Park. I'm sure you're all familiar with the park. It abuts the Greenway. So we are just a wonderful continuation, and as I think everybody feels, the Greenway has just been just such an amazing addition to this neighborhood. Anybody who's been here more than 10 or 15 years, I can't even believe what's happened. So it's wonderful. Chris used to be the commissioner of the Parks Department, and I know what a wonderful job he did then. And so I think we're all, I know, yeah, we're in public, I gotta ask that one. But anyway, that's wonderful. So the Columbus Park is in our minds, just a little bit of heaven. It was so beautifully designed. It's right on the water. It is very relaxing, as you all know. When you're on the other side of the Marriott, people buying tickets, they're all confused. They don't know where to go. How do you cross the street? There's traffic everywhere. They come through the Marriott. You can literally see them slow down, take a breath, and say, oh, it's calm. So tomorrow night is our annual membership social. It's at Tia's. It's from 6 to 8. I invite you all to come. It's a cash bar, wonderful hors d'oeuvres. Tia is very generous, the management very generous with the food. And so it's just a way to get to meet neighbors. If you're not a member of the group of the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park, we'd love you to join. Even if you just come by and say hello, but please join us. It's a lot of fun. You'll meet a lot of people you know. And so that's from 6 to 8 tomorrow night at Tia's. Then, so that's our May event. In June, the end of June, we have our annual, no, this not yet, Mark. Close. I didn't have a poster for this. So on June 29th, we have our annual Independence Day event, Saturday, June 29th, from noon to 3. It's for children, for the little ones. Every year, it's just amazing. It has exploded in attendance. It's a free event. We have everything from magician, big balloons, the big bubbles, music. There's always some kind of cartoon character who the children dance with. That just breaks your heart when you see these 3 and 4-year-olds cuddle up to some big stuffed critter. And the parents are all happy. We have a craft table, which last year was particularly fun. There was some kind of a coloring thing. And I went towards the end of the day, and there was not one, but 2 fathers who were working on this project because their little ones were waiting in line to get a balloon. And they were so intense, so I had to take their picture, and I laughed and they laughed. So it's a wonderful family experience. Again, we're all volunteers, so it's, everybody chips in to make this stuff happen. So that's our end of June event. Then we get into July, and now this one, our cruise. So this is, last year was the first time that Boston Harbor City Cruises donated the Odyssey to us. We had an entire deck of the Odyssey. Yes, not generous. Says Matthew Murphy of Boston Harbor City Cruises. So it was really incredible. The reason that they donate this is that many of their ships go out of Long Wharf, their tours, and then people have to walk through Columbus Park. So they realize that without our group, the park wouldn't look the way it does. So this event is on Tuesday, July 30th. Boarding starts at 5 o'clock. And we will take off at 6 o'clock. There's music, there's amazing food. We knew that we would get good food. If you've been on the Odyssey, you know the food is really quite excellent. But it's fabulous salad, salmon, chicken, pasta, a dessert table that's never ending. So it's $75 a person. There's also a DJ and a dance floor, and then people have access to the other deck. So the upper deck, which you see pictured there, is just stunning. So a lot of people are up there. Of course, as you can imagine, I think there's a bar on every deck, so you can get yourself what you need. So it's just $75. Last year we had just over 100 people, since it was the first time. I don't think people really knew what to expect. We had good turnout, but I really think last year, because of the buzz from what happened last year, that everybody had such an amazing time, that we're really gonna sell out. We have a cap at 130. So if you're interested, I say buy your tickets right away. We leave from the Rose Wharf dock. Also, anybody with any disabilities or mobility issues at all, the staff is right there to help. They have a wheelchair. They can, they help people down. They were incredibly attentive. I mean, Boston Harbor City Cruises, they know what they're doing. They have made this just an amazing experience. We wanted for nothing. They were there just making sure we had everything we wanted. So I can't speak more highly of them, and for their support. So, so those are 3 events that our little group of wild Indians has put together for this spring and summer. And I hope you can join us at each of them. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Questions about any of those events?
Could you just repeat all that one more time?
Yeah.
Especially about the Boston City Harbor.
Yeah, the cruises.
It's very generous. I mean, that's a lot of program for 75.
Oh, it is, yes. If you look at what their tickets are for, just regular events, there may be less expensive, but you don't get the food.
Yeah, right.
And I really can't, we were just in awe of the buffet table. It was just amazing, so.
Cool. Before we have, Heidi and, the folks from Intercontinental talk about the BERDO, which is really an important topic. Just give you a brief update on some of the things that have been going on. In the background, we had a meeting about State Street and our concern about the idea to have the bike lanes relocated from State Street to Milk Street. That meeting was held a couple weeks ago with the mayor and Chief Franklin Hodge and about a dozen other people from the city, and about 8 or 9 people from our side presented our suggestions, and they said that they would take a look at our suggestions and get back to us. I think that's about as much as we've succeeded at, but it's not nothing. We shall see.
We're in year 6. This project started about 6 years ago, before COVID, 2018, I believe, and it continues.
And there were a number of other elected officials there. Representative
That's right.
Wentz was in attendance.
That's right.
I think that Councilor Coletta was there.
Yeah.
Councilor Flynn. Yes, Councilor Flynn dropped in.
Yeah, and they asked some questions, and we're, one of the things that Councilor Coletta said, and perhaps this, you can remind her to continue her focus on the data. One of the things that they said is that they had early data, but the percentages showed a lot of lot, 40% more bike use. The problem is that we don't know if that goes from 10 bikes to 14 bikes, or from a really lot of bikes to a really lot more bikes. So I think it's important for Councilor Coletta to really make sure they provide legitimate data, not summarize it in ways that substantiate the decision that they've already made. I'm sure she understands that, but you know, one of the things that Chief Franklin Hodges said is that it's very difficult. There's so many moving parts, you know, it's very difficult to get the data to tell. He didn't tell you exactly what the story is, and we're like, yeah, we know. we run that call, yeah. Anything else you want to say about the call?
Well, we had met with a few of the people from BTD, Chief Franklin Hodge, and about a month before that, and there was no data at that time. So we were happy to see at least the effort to examine both of the plans.
Yes.
And to add a few more bits and bobs of data. So we're gonna stay. We're gonna stay on it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, and thank you her also for her pushing on this, because it's I think everybody thinks that the answer is in the numbers. Don't actually personally think the answer is in the numbers. I think that there are because you kind of think that Chief was saying that you can make the numbers say whatever it is, or that they won't tell you what it is that you want. We all know that. But more data is better.
Including data about Milk Street and analysis of
Which is
Milk Street as in contrast to State Street as an alternative option. I don't believe that that has been fully considered by BTD, and I hope that that is what they are focusing on now.
Yeah. The point that we tried to make, just in case you're talking to anybody else, is that what they proposed on State Street is not ideal. They understand they have much better designs in their guidelines for bike lanes, which would be great, but there just isn't room for them. So there's a compromise that's required to put it on State Street. There is a compromise that is required to put it on Milk Street. It is not perfect either. And so the question is, if you have two options and a compromise has to be made, what is the best way to make that decision? We obviously think that the one that is safest and has the best likelihood of not negatively impacting all of the adjacent neighborhoods, and that provides bi-directional lanes, and so therefore is a better part of the bike network, are some of the arguments for why the bike lane should be on Milk Street and not on State Street. Neither one is perfect. We understand that. We're not suggesting Milk Street is perfect, but it's better of the two. I would just let everybody know that on the screen at the moment is our most recent graphic. It talks about we've all talked about this. I don't think we've actually shared it. We have some copies here in case anybody wants to see them. Eric prepared this as our most recent piece. You may recall that we've been talking about, and everybody talks about a 1% likelihood of a major storm. We always talk, that's a 100-year storm, right? So we're talking about a 1% storm. Those are engineers talking, but as the people on our climate resilience task force who have backgrounds in real estate pointed out, no one pays any attention to 1%. Right, Ron? No. However, exactly. However, if a fact that nobody's been paying any attention to is that if you're looking at a 15-year horizon, that's a 15% likelihood of something disastrous happening. Everybody is concerned about a 15% possibility. And so what this does is identifies there are, you know, for zone 5, which is this orange zone, there is a 14 it says, but 15% likelihood of major inundation, all systems being flooded. And then in that 15-year period, in that same area, there is a 64% likelihood of some level of devastating flooding. So those are really different numbers than we've seen before. This number, this thanks to Suzanne and our graphics person, Barbara, we now have all this information on our website. We have a meeting tomorrow, actually, with the Corps of Engineers to go through all the work that we have done, to introduce them to the Norm has been led our strategic planning effort. Thank you very much, Norm. We have a strategic plan. Yep, go ahead. All right. We have a strategic plan for what our what the task force is supposed to do going forward, and we will be meeting with the Corps of Engineers to ask them what it is they would like us to do to assist them. So we continue to pursue this actively, and any questions on that? Okay. Let us let's see, Heidi, and if anyone else other than you, Heidi, presenting, or
well, hopefully you can, not to work today, so I'm on the phone, but if I'm going to go through a couple of things.
Heidi, you are breaking up.
Okay. My microphone is not working on my phone for whatever reason, so I called in, but give me 1 second, I'm going to try calling my cell phone.
A little closer to you. That could be.
You know what? Maybe this helps. Does this help?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to look a little funny on my screen, but so everybody, hi, my name is Heidi Wolf, and I am the manager at the residences at the Intercontinental and also the Master Association at that property as well, that covers the hotel, the residences, and the garage. We have been working on BERDO for a while now. We've been kind of trying to dive into it, and, you know, I think everybody's heard of BERDO a little bit, but I think probably not to the extent that it's going to be heard. So we wanted to kind of bring it to everybody's attention. With me from my building, I have, well, Sheila and Ray are the Wharf District Council representatives. They're from the residences. And then I also have Alan Isaacson, why don't you just wave, and Jerry Wilson, and they're both from our building, and Janet Meany is from Barkin Management Company, who is the management company for this property. Am I able to share my screen? There we go. So as I mentioned, I think a lot of people have heard of BERDO before. It used to be just a reporting ordinance. Now it is actually called the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance. So it went from being just a reporting requirement in 2013 to being emissions reduction in about 2021 when Mayor Janney signed it into law. So what that is so we have about 6,000 buildings in Boston are going to need to comply in 2025. So right now, probably everybody's reporting. But starting in 2025, any residential building over 15 units or any non-residential building over 20,000 square feet is going to be required to comply to certain emission standards. And what they're working toward is by 2050, so 25 years from now, to be net zero emissions for all buildings in this, over 15 units for residential and over 20,000 square feet for non-residential. It's a great intent, but there are a lot of problems. And so we just wanted to, again, bring it to everybody's attention so you know what is coming down the line. So the emission standards are, this screen just shows all of the different industries, kind of what those emission standards are. And every 5 years that changes. So the dark blue is what is currently in effect for starting in 2025. So that would be reported in 2026. And I will tell you what these numbers mean in a few minutes. But for instance, multifamily housing, the standard is 4.1. Hotels, so that would be considered lodging, is 5.8. All of these things can be blended later. Based on square footage. So like our building, we would look at our square footage and say, okay, something, say 60% is 5.8, and then 40% is 4.1, and we would come up with a blended ratio for our building. But every 5 years, that standard drops. You can see, like for instance, multifamily housing goes from 4.1 to 2.4 to 1.8 to 1.1 to 0.6 and then 0. In 2050, everybody's intended to be net zero emissions. Now,
Heidi, it will be easier for us to see this if you could click on this slide show thing down here. The numbers would be bigger to see where I'm. Yeah, no, left is that. Well, that's better too.
I'm sorry. That's good? Okay. So again, all of this is pretty much taken from, most of this is taken from the BERDO website. If you just go to I think it might even be BERDO.gov, but if you just go to boston.gov or search for BERDO, it will pop right up and you'll see most of these things right on here. But what these emission standards mean to buildings, so I've kind of identified here. And you know what, let me pop this up. That's probably going to be easier too. There we go. So if you take the square footage of your building, and I just used an example for 2025, but if you say you have a 500,000 square foot building, and your emission standard, I used 5.8 for hotel, is 5.8, then your GHG, which is greenhouse gases target, is 2.9 million. So that's just simple multiplication. Then there is a conversion rate to bring that down to 2,900, excuse me. That's the BERDO mandate that this particular building would be set for. So that's their standard that they're using. Everybody's reporting right now, and say this building is reporting at 3372. Well, the difference between those two numbers is 472. So there's 472 units of greenhouse gas that are being used that we have to basically reduce in some way or pay for. There is a tax rate, so there is a number, a dollar amount that has to be multiplied by each of those units that we're over, and that would give us an annual, what they call an alternative compliance plan. It's basically a tax or a fee of $110.5 thousand a year. And that's just for the first 5 years. And then it would be reduced thereafter. So this just kind of gives you an idea of what that emission standard might mean for a building. So what people need to know is that there are 3 ways to comply with that emission standard and that calculation. So the first way is that you can reduce the energy use in your building. That basically equates to infrastructure improvements. I mean, you can look for the low-hanging fruit, you know, replace the bulbs, the lighting in your building with LED, you know, tightening window seals, or you can actually go after the big stuff and replace chillers and heat exchangers and all of that other stuff. But basically, you need to try to get on 100% electric, or as close to that as possible. The second way that you can comply is obtain renewable energy. So eventually people are going to have to buy green energy, so green electricity, which is more expensive, or in our case, we use steam, so we're going to have to buy green steam, which is significantly more expensive. You can go to solar energy, you can do all of those things, or you can actually buy renewable energy certificates. So that's basically saying, I'm going to pay for I'm going to buy renewable energy for, from the companies, and somebody can use it somewhere else in the region. So you can actually do that and kind of buy credits into renewable energy. Or the third way is to pay that alternative compliance payment, which I kind of went over in that calculation previously. So that is considered a legitimate method for complying with the BERDO requirements going forward. Most people will choose some sort of mix. They'll try to do what they can to reduce their emissions. They will also buy green energy and maybe buy some renewable energy credits, but then there may be some sort of a fee going forward as well. So what does this mean for, overall? What this means is, again, most buildings, especially in the Wharf district, are going to have to convert as much as possible to electric, and we're going to have to buy green energy. So we're talking about increases in our capital costs for infrastructure improvements. We're talking about increases in our operating costs for utilities, because our utility expenses are going to go up if we're buying green energy. But even when we do that, Eversource is not capable of providing 100% electric to every building in Boston. The infrastructure isn't there for them. So while we're doing this, Eversource is also going to be trying to upgrade their infrastructure, expanding their grid, allowing people to, maybe do cogen and different things to get more electric. But they're also going to be building more wind and solar farms so that they can provide the increased demand to people. And all of those costs that they're going to be paying to do that are probably going to increase the cost of electricity as well. So there's a ripple effect here. The economic impact, again, we talked a little bit about this, but it's going to mean a lot of increased costs for the buildings in the city of Boston. And again, I'm not trying to say that this isn't a great mission. The concern here, though, is that it's kind of a one-size-fits-all plan when we are not one-size-fits-all buildings. And so there is a lot of concern about how that is going to affect individual buildings, what it's going to do on the residential side for resale values, well, actually on non-residential too, but leases for all kinds of buildings, what it's going to do for, occupancy in the building, supply and demand. People are going to probably be looking to go elsewhere when they look for buildings to buy in the city. They're probably the first question should be, are you BERDO compliant? What are my assessments going to be? What are my fees going to be going forward? So these are all things that are really important to think about because it is going to affect almost everybody in the city. And then I also just pulled up, because I was trying to keep this as short as possible, and then we'll kind of open up more of a discussion for everybody. But I pulled up three. So there is a BERDO calculator on the web, on the internet. If you just search BERDO calculator, it will pop right up. And you can search by any reporting address. So if you put in your building's address, you can probably look. But if you can't for some reason, I highly encourage you to talk to your building manager, because your building may not be in a situation where it's a significant issue. You may already be compliant or very energy efficient for now, but pretty much everybody's going to have to do something in the near future. So definitely look at this, or ask your building manager, or start these discussions with your building team. But I pulled up three buildings just to give you an example. This one is a movie theater and all three of these buildings are in the Wharf district. This one's a movie theater, and you can see that right over here. It says primary use. I took away the addresses, but I think everybody can probably guess which one that is. But from 2025 to 2029, no payments, no alternative compliance payments required. If you look at everything going forward, I mean, this is if they don't do anything past what they're doing now, and this is all based on what they're reporting right now. So again, things can change, but based on what's been reported, and if they do nothing, this is the path that they would be looking toward. That this would be their payment every year for each of these 5-year periods. I'm sorry, I went backwards, but anyway, this is the next one, which is an office building. It's actually a mixed-use building. This one's much more significant. Starts at 0, they're compliant right now, but between 2030 and 2034, they're going to be paying $180,000 a year, and it goes all the way up. By 2050, they're paying $500,000 a year. And then the next one, and again, these are just examples, so everybody's going to be different, but the next one is the worst one that I found. In 2025, they're already not compliant, and they're looking at $150,000 a year, each year for 5 years, and then it goes up to almost $500,000, and it just keeps getting worse until it's almost $1 million a year at 2050. And that's, you know, there are a lot of people would say, well, you know, they must be really inefficient. Some things are hard to change. Some things you totally can change, but, you know, say this is a newer building. Replacing capital, you know, infrastructure, replacing capital equipment before it is at the end of life creates its own concerns about environmental consciousness. So, you know, things like that, or, you know, again, is it even possible or feasible for them to go much less than they are now? Maybe, maybe not. But these, again, are all conversations that we want people to understand that this is something that's important and it should be on everybody's radar. And we want you to go back and start having these conversations with your buildings. That's the end of my slides, but I'm going to open it up to questions. And if any of the people I'm with want to add anything to that as well.
I see Matt Rubins has his hand raised. Matt?
Hey, Heidi, and thanks for bringing this up to us. I'm on the Harbor Towers board and I chair the finance committee. We've been working on BERDO for, I think, since BERDO 1.0. So we've been working on this issue for quite a while. We are fine until 2030. We do have an issue that kicks in around that time, and then on out. We've done most of the kind of obvious efficiency things that we could do on our own with given our capital budget. What we wound up actually contracting with is a new there is a class of companies called ESCOs, energy service companies. We happen to be working with one called Ecosave. They've got about 17,000 buildings around the country. We just did a deal with them. We think it's potentially phase 1. We'll see where it goes from here. But the basic deal is they are putting up about $600,000 of capital. They are going to replace put some new control systems on our building automation system, replace some variable frequency devices on our fans, put in a bunch of steam traps, basically do a bunch of stuff that we could not afford to do on our own. And in exchange for that, they are going to guarantee about $80,000 a year of energy savings. So right off the top, our natural gas and electrical bills are guaranteed to fall by about $80,000. We pay them a fee for that benefit. So the fee is about 50 grand. I'm probably oversharing the numbers, but the key here is that they are going to front the capital. They guarantee the savings, and this puts us below our BERDO threshold for 2030 to 2035. And our thinking is, if this plan works with them, the next step would be to replace our chillers, which is our biggest capital item and our most expensive item. That would basically clear us from BERDO for probably an additional 10 years beyond that. So we're basically in phase 1 with Ecosave to get us below the 2030 threshold. And then if we decide that we like working with them, we will go ahead and do the chillers, which will push us down for probably the next 10 to 15 years beyond that. The only other big item we have that we could go after is our boilers. We agree that green steam is not economical right now. We've had some conversations with the steam provider. more to follow on that. But this is definitely an issue we're focusing on. And again, the issue, the one suggestion you didn't put in your slide deck, I just want to make sure people are aware of. There are ways to do this risk sharing arrangement with, and there are other companies like Ecosave out there. There's Amoresco. There's probably a dozen of these companies out there. We just happen to like these folks, and we did some referencing on them. They're new to Boston. Happy to make a referral if anyone would like to talk to them. But it's again another option to consider in terms of the efficiency side. And again, they'll put up the capital and they'll guarantee the savings.
That's a great point. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, Ecosave has actually reached out to us as well, and we're doing an assessment. I didn't realize Harbor Towers had steam, so that's interesting, because I thought we were one of the only buildings in this particular district that has
We're on
it,
natural gas. We're on natural gas now. We were on steam in the dark ages. We're now on natural gas, and we're looking at potentially converting back because our boilers are gas fired, and they're also sitting in the harbor garage.
Interesting.
Below sea level.
So so steam, from my understanding, is about green steam is about 5 times the cost of regular steam. For everybody else, green electricity is usually about 3 or 4 cents more. So it's still more expensive, but not anything like steam. And so it is for those of us who are on steam or might be getting on steam. I mean, it's still a better option than gas. You're going to have, a better situation, but it's not a very appetizing future.
Well, the other consideration, just to put it out on the table, is for those of us who have natural gas fired stoves in our units, we have 612 gas fired stoves. And the alternative to that is to basically run new electricity to every unit, which is clearly not economical. So we're focused on this issue. It's a big one.
Yes. I'm glad. Thank you.
So, Heidi, I think it's important for all of us to understand this because it is a topic that is going to affect most of us in one way or the other. I guess my question would be, is there a group of building owners that are involved in discussion about this currently, or what is the status of both the regulation and the compliance?
So I don't really know how to answer that. It is, the requirement is in place, and in 2026, people are going to have to start reporting and paying if they have any fees, and start going through that process. We at our building are looking to work with other buildings and try to come up with a banded group to talk about the pragmatic situation and involved with moving this forward as a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. There are applications that you can complete for hardship compliance and such, but it is you have to do a lot ahead of time. You have to get energy assessments for your building. You have to put a lot into getting the information for making those applications to prove that you can't meet the requirements set forth. So those aren't that easy either. But I don't know of a group that is already in place to kind of share the concerns with the people in charge.
Looking to see if Tom Alley was still on from ABC. I think he is not. I'm going to invite the folks from ABC who've been very involved in this all along to come talk with us and tell us how they have been having people for this conversation. Alan, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I would answer that question. Go ahead, Heidi.
I know A Better City is working very hard to get the information out to building owners to get them working toward compliance. It's not so much sharing concerns with the city, though. It's more just, this is a done deal. Let's move toward working it out and getting people there. So.
Yeah.
I guess I would answer that question and compare it to what you've gone through in climate resiliency. It has taken a great deal of effort that you folks know all too well to build an awareness and a level of concern where you start to see the ball rolling. And if we look at how long that's taken with climate resiliency and look at the BERDO timeline, there's not really a lot of time left in which to get mobilized, because there's really a huge gap. And I appreciate, you know, what they're doing at Harbor Towers, but for a lot of us, including, you know, my building out in Dorchester, there's really not a lot of options that are currently available. And so there's a real gap between, okay, where we are now and where we have to be. And I've engaged the folks at BERDO a lot, and there's really a lack of a roadmap. Even for myself, it took me 7 years to get my building properly classified. 7 years. And that to me is just, you know, a ridiculous amount of time where they're classifying my building as a residence, which in real case, I'm really not a residence. I'm another kind of structure. And so, you know, I think the best thing is to bring this concern to you folks so we can get your assistance in starting to get the word out. Because if we don't, we're going to end up with large building assessments that are going to trickle down to our tenants, trickle down to our businesses, who are then going to choose to leave because financially it's going to be so difficult to stay here. And if we combine that with everything else the city is looking at, from, you know, a transfer tax, some kind of rent control, adjusting the burden of the real estate tax to a heavier, so that the commercial properties bear a heavier percentage. All of that combined is going to be, I think, very dangerous for what has been a very profitable sector, which is our downtown and our Boston commercial buildings. And, you know, just recently, the Boston Chamber of Commerce sent a strong letter to the mayor concerned about all this stuff, because it is going to possibly have as big effect, if not more, than COVID did on how the city has now changed.
Thank you, Alan. All right, so we're going to continue this conversation in the future, but thank you very much, Heidi, and all of you folks from Intercontinental. Again, this affects us all, and we'll continue to get some more information as we go forward. We have two other things just before we all have to go off and have a drink. Bob Paone is still on. Do you want to tell us about the proposed zoning changes for the cannabis?
Yeah, this is a much more mundane subject than the one we're discussing. But about a week or so ago, I, as well as many, received an email from Councilor Ed Flynn, bringing to attention that the BPDA is looking to change the zoning for cannabis stores. Right now, there's a half-mile variance that anyone wanting to open up a shop within half-mile of another store needs to go to the zoning commission and get a variance to allow that. They're looking to do away with that half-mile increment. When I look at the Wharf district, I see that there are already 4 cannabis locations in the district, and I suggest if you just want to look at a map, go to Google Maps and just type in search for cannabis stores, and they all
more than
pop
that.
up.
There's 7, right?
There's 7 dollars.
There's 7 right in this area.
Yes. So I'm wondering, why would somebody want to change the zoning? And the only thing I can consider is that stores want to put additional cannabis locations within our location, within the Wharf district. Evidently, we're a profitable area for pot smokers. So I, along with Councilor Flynn, have opposed this to the zoning commission. If you want to review the subject, you can go to, there's the point person for BPDA is Will Cohen. That's short for William Cohen. And Will can be researched. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so Will can be accessed at will.cohen@boston.gov.
Great, Bob, thank you. We have both, we have Tito here, and I think Vern's on the line too, right? Tito, you want to update us on this?
This is actually very, very poor, and I would just say lazy work on behalf of the BPDA. So instead of saying, okay, we have half a mile, maybe we move it incrementally to a quarter mile. What do? They say, hey, let's just scrap this, because they are making the assertion that the state law is being violated. So the law says that you have to have 20% of the number of liquor licenses. So that's about 52 stores. In addition, the BPDA also has not also looked at people who haven't opened, right? And so how does that work? So you have people who have a license but have not opened yet, and that's actually considered a buffer around them. You, as the Wharf District, should be the most concerned in the city of Boston because of Faneuil Hall. And so if it is just a free-for-all, as a business person, there are 17 million people who walked through Faneuil Hall, the data that we had pre-COVID, and everybody and their mom is gonna wanna come down here. And so, to open. And by the way, the other piece that they're not dealing with is that this is also a very, very competitive industry, and the green rush is over. In 2019, when I got the building, it was $5,000 a wholesale pound. It's about $1,200 a wholesale pound today, right? So it's a very different world. I would say that I would submit as someone who comes to these meetings, you need to be loud as hell.
How do we do that?
You need to write a letter, and so you can write stuff and offend people without really offending them. But I think this one, I think this would be one that would speak about the disproportionate effect that it would have on this neighborhood with the number that you already have. And the proposal that would basically just open it up and understand what they're trying to do is also make cannabis as a right. Because it's also a conditional use right now. In addition, they're also trying to make it so they don't have to go to the zoning board at all. And that the Boston Cannabis Board would do all of the zoning components. So that what you could end up with is 20 more in the area.
Now, I know that they're having public meetings. And I'm not sure where the one was on May 7th.
It was online.
Where?
They don't do, it was online.
It's online, but nobody around here was notified, maybe you were, but.
Well, I was notified very late about this one. I think the city, in terms of the Office of Neighborhood Services, does do a good job pushing stuff out. Yeah, so I didn't hear about it until a couple of days before. So but I do believe, and then also you should have somebody come here and explain. You should have them come and explain why they want to do that and what's
the timeline for this?
I don't have a timeline for these.
It's not on the website.
I think the next meeting is the 31st of May.
Of May.
And
Fern,
that's-
Fern, do you want to say anything about this?
I agree with Tito. When the two of us came in front of you guys 4 years ago, 5 years ago was not exactly the same as it is now. It seems to be very sloppy there where the considerations and the cautions that they put up prior are not necessarily the same way that they're moving right now. And the best way to be heard, I think, is to be loud about stuff. And if you're opposed to something, be opposed to it. I'm all for competition and that's all great. But at the same time, when we came to you guys, it was different. And it was one or two of us. It wasn't like Tito said, there's 7 in our buffer zone. And having to have monthly meeting after monthly meeting of someone trying to get into Faneuil Hall is kind of absurd. But that's just me.
Yeah. Ask a question of Tito. What is driving this? Beneath the BPDA, like what is really the driving rationale?
I know that there was legislation that happened after, and I'm not as good, because I was gonna try to open my company, as on the council stuff. There was legislation, that, was trying to deal with the, competing interests from the Boston Cannabis Board, as well as the, zoning board, because what was happening is BCB was sometimes pushing stuff through, and then the zoning board's like, no, get this out of here. I don't know if it's the right, what they're doing. I actually don't necessarily know that they have the skill sets yet. Because essentially a lot of these boards will have a specific seat for, okay, let's have an architect. If you're gonna build stuff, you might wanna have somebody who actually knows about the building stuff, a community member and the like. That was not in the initial Boston Cannabis Board purview. Public safety, you had community member, you had somebody from labor, so you had those things. I know that they have modified those positions, and I believe they're trying to cover off on that. But I think the real question is, do neighborhoods have a voice?
Yeah.
Do you have a chance to say enough is enough? And let's also be real. Even downtown, I haven't seen 7 new liquor licenses go in all at one time, right? Seaport's a little, but like, that just doesn't happen. And that's what you're kind of seeing happen. And it's not fair to the neighborhood. And frankly, from the business side, it's also not fair to the businesses who you're setting up for failure. Because unless you're growing the stuff, the cannabis, then you actually really don't have that control over your price. So you're gonna see a price war, but we also have downtown rent.
Right. Yeah. So, the Wharf District Council, I would remind everybody, has been very clear on our opposition to more, cannabis stores. I think we want to continue our position on that. Fern and Tito, if you will work with us on finding the right people to address our opinion about this too. We understand the challenges that you have already, when we want to continue to support the interests of the neighborhood of not having enough. We have enough good stuff.
Absolutely.
This is Bob Paone again. The proposed deadline for submitting comments is Friday, May 31st. And I put this on the chat. If you want to send a message to anyone, please direct them to will.cohen@boston.gov. And again, that's on the chat. Thank you.
Okay. Did you get that?
I did.
Will.cohen.
will.cohen@boston.gov. And it's on the chat line.
Yeah, well, we don't have that open yet, but there it is, will.cohen. Okay, great. Bob, thank you very much.
Could I just add,
Oh, yeah, please.
from Faneuil Hall Marketplace's perspective, we are very supportive of the proposed dispensary use for the former Durham Park space, and all of our merchants are also very supportive of that. We have felt very confident in the operator's take on the space and the mixed use that it would be. So from our perspective,
But you probably don't want 10 more.
Well, I mean, that's not really up to me or for me to say, but as far as that specific project is concerned, we have been very excited about that space and the investment that the group has been willing to make and has been willing to work with the property management and all of our tenants. So I just wanna drop that on.
Well, that's a done deal, right?
Well, no, it's not.
We have written a letter, not that we were against that business, it's just that we felt it was one too many stores, given the fact that we had 7 in this very small area. So, and in fact, in the letter, I think we said something about it. One of them wasn't around, you know, it wasn't a question of opposing the business, it's the number of locations.
What is this, what is the status? Somehow I thought it was done.
It's not, yeah. Still in flux.
With the cannabis board or the zoning board or?
No, it passed through the zoning board. There's some other external elements at play.
Governmental or internal?
Internal.
Oh, fine, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
We've got one more.
Okay,
thing.
so last, you wanna talk to that?
Well, I know Liz was on the, she may have left.
Yeah.
Liz, Nelson Weaver. They're going to have, a, walking tour of the Wharf District called Taxes, Freedom, Independence. What have these meant along Boston's waterfront and beyond? Join the Friends of the Boston Harbor Walk and Liz Nelson Weaver on Tuesday, July 2nd at 5:30 for 1 hour tour of the Wharf District to explore Revolutionary War themes. Tour begins promptly at the Harbor Islands Welcome Center on the Greenway. Tickets are $10. Liz is going to be at our June meeting. So Liz has presented to us. I know she's doing a lot with the signage on the Harbor Walk, and she has given tours. So we're really excited about this. I think this is a great feature here. So I would encourage folks to sign up.
Thank you. May I squeeze in one plug? So whale watches are happening and the seas are finally starting to lie down. So whale watches are happening. Provincetown Ferry is happening on a daily basis now. If you want to take a day trip to Provincetown, and as if you need another gala to go to, not the Spectacle on Spectacle.
That's a good one.
Gala, yeah, it's a great evening. That's happening on June 12th. And helps to fund the programming on the Boston Harbor Islands. It's a great evening, and BHCC provides transportation for that. And one new program for the Boston Harbor Islands, I think will be of interest to everybody. The Harbor Islands, let's see, Pettix opens on June 12th, and then all the other two, Spectacle and George's, open on June 20th. But on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, all season long this year, it's $10 off for Massachusetts residents. And it's an online promotion. You just go in, you put in your zip code. It takes $10 off the usual retail price of the ferry. And that's for any of the islands, whether you're going to George's, Spectacle or Pettix. So just wanted to, you'll hear more about that, but I just want to give a quick plug if I could. Thank you.
We should get that onto the website.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Melissa, did you want to say something? I see you put a lot of stuff in the chat. Did you want to say something about this that we?
Oh, no, Mark, I just really wanted to thank your leadership as well as Suzanne's. Just feel like you guys have been doing a really good job. Just, putting your fingers on almost every kind of changes that has been happening in the city. We know that we, still represent a small portion of the Wharf District, but Councilor Flynn always is very loyal to the Wharf District because he has the utmost respect for you and Suzanne. And we do have, I believe, a Harbor Walk that's being scheduled with Councilor Coletta's office. And he really very much look forward to seeing you and taking your guidance. And he just really want me to be here to let you know that he's sorry he cannot be here for this meeting, but he really hoped that he could join you at the next meeting. And he very much looks forward to the walkthrough that we will be having and continue our conversation about State Street and BERDO and other matters that are close to the Wharf District's heart. So thank you again, Mark and Suzanne.
Jack, would you like to say anything representing Councilor Coletta? I don't mean to put you on the
No,
spot.
that's okay. No, nothing at the moment. I'm happy to be here. This was my first in-person. Usually I join Zoom.
Oh, it's funny,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But yes, as Melissa was just saying, we are working with Councilor Flynn's office to do a waterfront walkthrough. So we'll be looping you guys in as well.
Incredible heartfelt congratulations to the counselor getting married.
It was the most beautiful wedding that I have ever been to. It really was. Chris, you would appreciate it more than anyone. Oh my God, the garden was just stunning, yeah.
I just want to thank Councilor Coletta's office and her staff and Jack and Councilor Flynn's office and his staff and Melissa. We are blessed with.
Sarah's on there.
Who?
Sierra.
Oh, Sierra.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good dear. Do you have anything you want to say or neighborhood
No,
service?
I just been listening and just wanted to say hi.
But we are very fortunate to have two city councilors. Councilor Flynn has a small portion to the south of us, and of course on our Councilor Coletta now, plus neighborhood services and the great job that they're doing. So thank you all.
Indeed. Anything else? Anybody? Going once, going twice. Thank you all very much. See you in June.